Football is officially back, and we've got you covered right here on the Ringer NFL feed. I'm Sheil Kapadia, and every Tuesday and Friday, Ben Solak and I will be bringing you Extra Point Taken.
Nora Princiotti here to tell you that Stephen Ruiz and I will be coming to you every Monday and Thursday. Our Monday show will recap everything from Sunday's games. Thursday's show will encompass any news during the week with an eye towards the next slate of games.
Subscribe to the Ringer NFL show on Spotify or wherever you get your podcasts.
Be sure to follow the Ringer NFL on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter at Ringer NFL.
This episode is brought to you by Anytime Fitness. We may talk a whole lot about sports, but when it comes to keeping fit ourselves, there's definitely room for improvement. I hit this point early July. I was just like, I am not in good enough shape. I started trying to walk at least 15,000 steps a day or hiking or just anything to keep my legs moving. Now it's the end of 2023. I feel great. I had a physical 3 weeks ago, and the guy was like, you're doing great. You're doing better than you were 3 years ago. I felt great. Whatever your goals are, progress is possible thanks to Anytime Fitness. Get a personalized plan and support from an expert coach anytime, anywhere. Visit anytimefitness.com to try Anytime Fitness for free. Start to train for your life. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. See website for details. This episode is brought to you by Read, Write, Own, Building the Next Era of the Internet, a new book from entrepreneur and startup investor Chris Dixon. If you're listening to this podcast, you know what it's like to be part of a community of fans. You value the people who play, perform, and create for everyone. Well, what if there are more ways to support them, more ways to be a fan? And what if you had even more ways to connect with the teams, artists, and other creators that you love? Even though creators make the internet valuable, how much value do they get for their work? Well, that's mostly up to a few big tech companies. Shouldn't creators get more from the platforms they make successful? More value, but also more say, more control, more ownership? Read, Write, Own explores an alternative future for the internet, one that reclaims control for creators, fans, listeners, and gamers, the people who not only use the internet, but make it useful. Read, Write, Own imagines an internet built by us for us. So order your copy of the book today or learn more at readwriteown.com.
I need support staff to clear the room. Stand up and walk now.
Hello and welcome to The Watch. My name is Chris Ryan. I am an editor at TheRinger.com, and joining me in the studio, he will not be attending the Jets game this weekend. It's Andy Greenwald!
Who is it? What's that?
Are you not up on Travis and Taylor?
Oh,
the Jets Chiefs, and Taylor Swift's going to be at whatever shitted place that the Jets play.
Wow,
my bad. I'm not taking it back, but I'm just like, sorry.
It was a couple layers to it because, like, I'm not going to go to a Jets game anyway. What am I, Sean Fantasy?
I know, but I'm just saying, like, Taylor Swift will be in attendance at Sunday Night Football.
We know that?
Apparently, allegedly.
I wish she had something to promote right now. That would be really good timing
Taylor
for
Swift?
her. Yeah, if only there was something like
a film coming out.
Yeah, like if she had like filmed her concert.
It's been a really interesting time in my household personally because it is actually it's almost a cliche how my wife is like, and now who is Travis Kelce?
It's really happening.
Yeah, and I'm like, he's on TV not only in the most popular thing in the world, which is the NFL, but then in every commercial.
Yeah,
he is in it,
and he hosted Saturday Night Live. It's not like he's new to pop culture.
Yeah. But like, she's just like, I think she is fascinated by like the Swifties invasion of the NFL.
But then did you say, Phoebe, it's Jason Kelce's brother? Was she like, oh?
I said that it actually was like good for me personally.
Yeah.
Because if this did happen to an Eagle, it would inevitably be a distraction. And the Philadelphia sports community would inevitably get in trouble for their reactions to this.
Because if she were dating, let's say, I don't know, Reed Blankenship.
Yeah. Right.
And he missed a tackle, then...
Blankenship space, am I right?
See? It's so easy to do this. That's fantastic. Then the sports
I just don't think we would take it well. I don't think I mean...
But she's from PA. She's local.
She was. I think she used to be like crying in an Eagles jersey.
Now we're crying in Eagles jerseys.
And I just don't think that she's not really, these colors apparently did run. And now she's Chiefs Nation.
Do you have any, and we have other stuff to talk about today.
We're going to obviously talk about the finale.
But I'm interested in this. Like, do you, as a fan of the National Football League,
Uh-huh.
and as a fan, a robust fan of good standing of the discourse, do you have, just writ large, do you have an opinion about this? Like, are you running to one end zone or the other? Are you like, this is wonderful, or are you like, this is fraudulent, this is PR? Do you have a strong feeling about this?
their relationship?
Yeah.
It seems like it's real, man. It seems like it. I don't know. Like,
You believe in love?
See, the thing is that if I think it's kind of interesting and cool that she's just like, I'm going to the Sizzler and I'm having a little bit of everything.
This is
you know
right.
what I mean?
This is right.
I'm having a little Maddie Healy. I'm having a little Travis Kelce, and it's like, how different could you get?
The one thing that I have no time for is I did see some comments being like, this is clearly fake, because if there's one thing that Taylor Swift has told us over the last few years is that her dream man lives in the consumption ward in a World War I
he is
era
just
hospital.
basically like, he's like sitting next to Paul Mescal and normal people. Yeah.
And I'm like, this is exactly why this is the right thing to do.
She's going full Cheesecake Factory. It's
man.
macaroni balls and pad thai. You know what I mean?
Why not?
Actually, at Cheesecake Factory, they do not like it when you call them macaroni balls.
Why?
It's like fried pasta. Like, I just think that nobody wants balls as like.
Oh, I thought it was because like the old macaroni factory or like whatever that other chain restaurant
Anyway, my
is.
point being, you can get anything. Like Taylor, the world is her oyster. The world is her Cheesecake Factory menu.
Yeah, why should she not? Good for her. They're all having fun.
Yeah, sure.
That's what seems nice about it.
Yeah, just a couple kids trying to make it honest.
Just a couple of wildly rich, hot people hanging out.
Yeah.
That's what's supposed to happen. I don't know what's gone wrong with this country, frankly.
Yeah.
This
Did you think
parasocial stuff.
so a couple more Taylor things, just while I got you.
Yeah.
Did you think she
I did not think we'd be
too
talking about
passionately embraced the Chiefs as a team? Like when Travis Kelce scored, apparently that was a hot route. He broke off a corner route and cut across the middle. And she's like, let's fucking go.
Yeah, she did say that.
Did you think that was like performative, or do you think that she... Because she's supposed to be a Birds fan.
Shout out to the Cheesecake Factory. She's a corn dog. Like, that's part of her brand. Like, she's incredible at that. My only thing, and maybe this makes me more old-fashioned than anyone, is that she was sitting next to Donna Kelce, who I'm sure knows her way around some sailor talk. But if I had just met the mother of the person I was to use the Reservation Dogs parlance, snagging, I would just keep it more PG or PG-13.
Yeah, I hear you. Like, I probably wouldn't go full F-bombs. I'm sure nothing Donna Kelce hasn't heard before.
Yeah, I mean, her son, she listens to their podcast. She probably hears it. But, no, I mean...
Actually, I think they keep it pretty PG on New Heights. I think they drop a lot of F-bombs.
Do you think that they keep it G-rated, like, in the huddle?
No, I do not.
I definitely
But I don't think that those mic'd up segments always make it back to us. You know what I mean?
I think that's probably right, too. It's all performance. It's like, they used to call it the no fun league, Chris, right? Let them have a little.
Did you see her choice of condiments for her chicken fingers or whatever she was eating in the press box, where it was like ketchup and ranch?
First of all, she was not in the press box.
Discreet.
I promise you that.
With a player's box or whatever. But there was like a plate of chicken tenders.
There was Ray Ratto, like all the old ball scribes.
She's like, I got to rewrite my lead. You know what I mean?
So what are you asking me? Snacks?
She had chicken tenders and like on a plate, 2 like perfect concentric puddles of ketchup and ranch, I think. And it felt a little serial killery, but I didn't know where you landed on that.
Make famous people weird again. Like I'm of course she's a lunatic.
I guess when I have chicken tenders,
successful.
like my condiments are in perfect concentric circles. Like,
and also, do I squiggle?
Yeah.
No. One of my greatest pet peeves of all time is like if you get an order of French fries and people just like squirt ketchup on top of that.
Yeah.
No, I'm in charge.
Yeah, I got it.
Of how much condiment I want, because sometimes you want a condiment break. Sometimes you just want to taste the raw, not raw. You just want to taste the nude potato.
Just want to break a tooth.
The nude
on a hard potato.
You know? Then sometimes you get back into the sauces.
Sure.
Also, you're a fucking mayo guy, so I don't know what you're talking about.
No. Not with fries. I mean, I've moved into...
Not with fries anymore?
When I lived in Ireland...
Here we go.
I liked using mayo on my crisps.
Okay. All right, normal people.
But I have since, the world of aiolis has really expanded my horizons. Plus, I just like ketchup.
You're acting like this is typical. This is the typical Chris Tuesday.
Do you know what I also do is a little bit of Thai chili sauce, Greek yogurt, sriracha, and rice vinegar. But I've recently had to like dial back on the sriracha because I don't know when that's coming back into circulation.
It's true.
And is that a climate change thing or like labor,
supply chain? Wait, what do you do that for? What, just for life?
Yeah, it's like a bang noodle sauce, but I make it with Greek yogurt, and then I sometimes dip fries in that. That's sick.
You are an everyman.
I've actually become quite a dip maestro.
You haven't brought this up.
No, I know.
Did you start making some of the marinades that I recommended to you, and you were like, you know what, these look so goddamn delicious. I just want to stick something in them now.
I just usually use the raw chicken marinade for whatever. No, I don't.
You just make some dips at home.
I like to, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think everybody needs to have a hobby, you know?
That's great.
And I'm not dating any tight ends anytime soon, you know? Like nobody's asking me to come to Chiefs games.
Do you like Taylor Swift?
I like a lot of her songs.
Mm-hmm.
I've tried to remain agnostic about like being Swift pilled, you know, where I'm like, I really care about what's going on in her daily life or what the greater meaning of her songs mean. Some of that has invaded my household at times over the last 3 years.
Okay.
It was a long pandemic. What do you want to do? You know, like,
no, that's fine.
I think folklore hit at a moment when my wife was looking for something like that.
Well, she's always been drawn to flannel.
Yeah.
That's something
that's why she married me.
Yep.
Andy, I wanted to ask you a little bit about True Detective Night Country, which was supposed to be the next big HBO show that we talked about on the Watch podcast. And thanks for everybody for listening and sticking with us through this tough time when we don't have an HBO show to talk about.
I want to talk more football. But
you want to? I got mad takes, dog.
This is good. We'll save it for the end.
Do you think we should trade for Justin Jefferson, bring him home?
Well, no, it's the last thing we need. Who's talking about that?
I don't know. Fire sale in Minnesota. They're 0-3.
You think AJ would like that?
I don't know. Competition for places, you know?
I don't think so.
Andy, True Detective Night Country is this really interesting development in the world of television where you take something that I think is largely associated, rightfully so, with Nick Pizzolatto, who created the series, who wrote most of the series, and along with Cary Fukunaga was like sort of responsible for like that, bringing that into the world, and then took it over a little bit more forcefully in the last two seasons, season 2 and 3. 3, I thought, was incredibly underrated and really good. Mahershala is incredible in that.
Great performance. And Dorf.
Yeah. And now is being, I don't know how they wanted, what the terminology is, reimagined, rebooted, an additional season, a spin-off story, like whatever it is. But Pizzolatto is no longer involved. True Detective Night Country is now coming in January. We got our first kind of like significant full trailer this week. It stars Jodie Foster as a kind of seemingly grizzled Alaska detective, partnered with Callie Reis, who's like actually an ex-boxer in real life, but seems to have some personal history with the Jodie Foster character in as far as we can tell from the story. And they are investigating the disappearance of 8 men in an Alaskan town. Do you think
they're okay?
Those guys?
Yeah.
I gotta tell you, I don't.
Yeah. I watched the trailer
Much
too.
like the Minnesota Vikings. I think those guys are done for.
Wow.
Hey, I'm allowed to see what I want. You know, it's my pod.
That's true.
Well, it's our pod, but I can, if I want to pop off.
I noted that.
Yeah. I just want Kevin O'Connell to feed Alexander Madison. That's all I need.
You're also, by the way, think about Chris. Listeners, Chris is on the mic a lot during the week, and people feel a comfort level with you and a familiarity, but yet you still possess the ability to surprise.
It's incredible what you can do when you don't have children. And one of them is getting incredibly good at fantasy football in your mid-40s. So when I look in the mirror now and I see Kyle Shanahan staring back at me because I had the fucking foresight to get Anthony Richardson and Geno Smith so that when Anthony Richardson inevitably gets concussions every other week, I can just
slow, steady, Mr. Reliable.
Shove Geno out there. And, you know, I mean, I'm on an absolute tear to start the season.
I'm thrilled for you.
Back to True Detective. It has echoes of obviously great Alaska crime dramas and sci-fi like The Thing. Another personal favorite is 30 Days of Night. I think there's going to be a lot of darkness in Night Country.
Insomnia. Wasn't that
Yeah. And then also is inventively, or at least teasingly, echoing back to earlier seasons of True Detective. You may have caught the spiral symbol, which was a huge hit in the Carcosa household from the first season being used. And this has been for true detective heads.
You are the truest.
What Swifties do with her lyrics, I do with how are these seasons connected?
Yes.
Which has been long the dream of True Detective fans, is like that these seasons are taking place in the same sort of shared world, that there is an occult evil that is being shared among villains throughout these seasons, and that it stretches out across time, going back to Mahershala's days in Vietnam all the way through True Detective Season 1, True Detective Season 2, and that now obviously we're up in Alaska. What did you think of the trailer?
I thought the trailer looked amazing. It made me really excited for the show. It seems like something that got all the details right. Like, I'm watching the trailer and you see these faces and you see this landscape, you get the tone, you get the vibe, you're getting the score, and then you see the faces. And just like a little bit on the margins here, it's like, wait, is that John Hawkes?
Yeah.
Who was made to be in a True Detective show? And it is. Is that Christopher Eccleston? Yeah, that's perfect. That's exciting. That's what I want in a noir, in a genre show like this. Then you hear like kind of an emotional speech bubbling up. And I'm like, my God, is this Andor? What is this? It's Fiona Shaw. This is the stuff that HBO can do. Much like a skilled fantasy football manager. They draft well and they put players in a position to succeed for them. I thought it looked great. I think it's look, for whatever a true detective head is represented by you, I am a false idol in that regard, which, I'll take. So with that in mind, I'll say that I find this entire project pretty interesting. And what you're describing, okay, I might not be right about this. We're going off of a trailer, but it does seem to be interesting that the show is leaning into a lot of the possibilities of the franchise that Nick Pizzolatto, as the creator, had the right to ignore, right? Like, it's an interesting dynamic where from the beginning, at least I think when it was first announced, or at least after the first season was proved to be so successful, the idea that True Detective wasn't a show about Matthew McConaughey and Woody Harrelson, but it was about a kind of fever dream pulp procedural that could traverse the country and have some things that connected and overlapped, and maybe even, as many Cthulhu-minded Redditors chose to believe, some overarching supernatural or big bad kind of thing, right? And as season 1 gave way to season 2 and season 2 gave way to season 3, also longtime listeners will know I had a lot of time for some aspects of season 2, Colin Farrell doing drugs alone in a room particularly.
Yeah.
And I thought season 3 was pretty solid with some incredible performances.
Scoot's incredible. Mahershala is incredible.
Truly.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was also a stubbornness on the part of the creator about making it what he wanted to make it. Right. And that ran along with HBO's overall attitude towards people on overalls, which is, we trust you. It's yours. Even though I'm sure there were some people within the building being like, this could be a blank for us. This could be what Ryan Murphy gave to FX with American Horror Story for us in our world with our access to talent and whatever. He did not seem interested in doing that. Now they have an opportunity to do that, and whether that means leaning into the sort of the global possibilities of the show. It's set in Alaska. They filmed it in Iceland. Whether it's changing the leads from a very Pizzolatto, what's the word for what he likes? Man, into two women as the stars of the show, to potentially even bringing back this sort of idea of an overarching something or other. So it's really a fascinating experiment. But on the merits, I'm in. The showrunner and writer and director is a Mexican filmmaker named Isa Lopez. Barry Jenkins is one of the executive
producers. She did a movie
producers
called Tigers Are Not Afraid. That's really incredible.
Yes, I think people will hear my voice that I want to like this and I want it to hit. And it is not about any sort of saltiness about Nick Pizzolatto. It's really about, in the light of the conversation we had last week about what's going to come next after this strike. Obviously, this was filmed before the strike. But what I mean is, HBO took a big gamble here. They have a potential franchise. They handed it to a relatively unknown Mexican filmmaker and said, you're the person we choose to see this through. And should this hit, I think that speaks really well about their creative instincts, but also might give them some confidence that they still know what they're doing. Which, to be clear, Casey and Franny, they know what they're doing, but just like the rank and file, like, this is what we do.
I think it's really cool to imagine, obviously there's like this huge pressure on all streamers to maximize like what they can get out of the IP that they have. Right.
We saw this week that The Office is getting rebooted potentially.
And HBO has historically shown that they will wait for the right execution.
Correct.
Now, even if you don't love And Just Like That, or even if you don't love like whatever, like the sort of reinvention, Many Saints of Newark, like, or whatever it is, they will wait for the moment that they think that the idea is right and that the creative team that they've got in place is ready to rock. And there's no better example of that than the Thrones shows. They could have put 5 Thrones shows up by now, maybe. I know that they're very expensive to mount, but there have been plenty of ideas thrown around and rumored to be.
Plenty of development.
Yeah, and plenty of development gone on. So for them to kind of like keep their powder dry, wait, and do it when they think that they've got something. I mean, it was also interesting today, sort of post WGA strike ending, like it's like they're rolling on like a bunch of big shows. House of the Dragon sounds like it's coming back next summer, and then
they said Last of Us was going to start filming today.
Like today, yeah.
They were ready to go. White Lotus 3 is ready to go.
Yeah,
that all makes sense. I think that I think the point you're making is a good one, and it's something that probably came up tangentially when we talked to Casey Bloys here, I think in this studio a few months ago, but it's worth underscoring for sort of casual fans. One of the things that sets him apart, that makes him unique, and potentially puts him on a collision course with the corporate needs of his boss, David Zaslav, is that he will not do something.
Yeah.
He will say no. And I think 2 things really stand out in my mind about that. One is, where's Mare of Easttown season 2? Doesn't seem like we're going to get one. And I think that's because he liked a story. He liked one story.
Yeah.
There's another Brad Inglesby show coming. There's another Kate Winslet show coming. But he was like, we don't need to do that. Similarly, you mentioned And Just Like That, not an HBO show.
Yeah.
On Max, but not an HBO show.
Yeah.
So I think the fact that he was like, yes, this is not only something worth doing, but it's something worth doing as True Detective is significant.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Mint Mobile. New Year's resolutions are fun the first couple of weeks. Then you kind of maybe conveniently forget about them halfway through January. No shame. It happens to us all. But this year I have a foolproof plan, at least when it comes to saving money. Just switch to Mint Mobile and you're done. Goal accomplished, because for a limited time, their wireless plans are $15 a month when you buy a 3-month plan. The great thing about Mint Mobile is there's no jaw-dropping monthly bills or unexpected overages, and all plans come with unlimited talk and text. Get this new customer offer today at mintmobile.com/watch. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
Inspired by the life of the savvy and ambitious Colombian businesswoman Griselda Blanco comes a new Netflix original limited series. Griselda tells the story of a devoted mother who, with her lethal blend of charm and relentless savagery, creates one of the most powerful cartels in history. Witness Sofia Vergara's captivating transformation into the godmother of the underworld. Griselda, now streaming only on Netflix.
This episode is brought to you by Rakuten. If you're shopping while working, eating, or even listening to this podcast, then you know and love the thrill of the hunt. But are you getting the thrill of the best deals? Rakuten shoppers do. They get the brands they love with the most savings and cash back. And you can get it too. Start getting cash back at your favorite stores like UGG, Samsung, and Expedia. And even stack sales on top of cash back. It's easy to use, and you get your cash back through PayPal or check. The idea is simple. Stores pay Rakuten for sending them shoppers, and Rakuten shares the money with you as cash back. Download the free Rakuten app and never miss a deal. Or go to Rakuten.com to start getting the most bang for your buck. That's RAKUTEN. That's Rakuten.
With Capella University's FlexPath format, you can set your own deadlines, learn at your pace, and access most coursework from anywhere at any time. Imagine your future differently at capella.edu.
I want to get into Reservation Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
I was just wondering, because Sean and Amanda did a really cool episode earlier in the week about Stop Making Sense coming out.
Yeah.
And
the re-release, right?
It's coming out on Friday, I believe, in however many theaters. I'm not so sure how widely released it is. It was playing sporadically. It
was in IMAX this past weekend.
Yeah, I know. And it's going to be in LA this weekend. It's Stop Making Sense is, for those who don't know, the Jonathan Demme directed concert film of the Talking Heads, which is widely regarded as one of the handful of greatest concert films ever made.
It was originally released in 84.
Yeah. And there have been these really cool events across Los Angeles where the band The Talking Heads have been getting essentially back together to have conversations with people about the screening, at screenings.
If you know anything about the band, that is remarkable.
Yes.
They have not been seen publicly in the same room.
But I believe one PTA hosted a couple weeks ago, and it's just
Kim Gordon talked to them.
Oh yeah,
at Vidiots.
It's been an interesting moment where it's not necessarily like technological advances, but I was thinking about Stop Making Sense and being able to see that in an IMAX theater, which I hope to do this weekend, in partnership with the Replacements album, Tim, which was recently remixed by one of what's that guy's name? Ed Strasm?
I think
Stasium, who was like a Ramones engineer and had been up to engineer this historically like awesome album by the Replacements, who are this big American underground rock band in the 80s. For anybody who's listening to this podcast and doesn't know that. So
I think everyone knew we loved them, even if we've never said
Ed
that.
Stasium basically got the stems. Like he got the original tapes and has sort of refashioned Tim in the Let It Bleed version, it's called. And if you listen to it, especially like next to the original version, it's like this incredible, I don't know, it's like experiencing the record for the first time, like again, and they sound like they're playing down the street. I mean, like it sounds like a band that could just be like in a club right now. That's not really a good way of saying it. It just makes something that's old feel very present and very new.
And
as does, I'm sure, this IMAX, rendering of Stop Making Sense. I was just going to ask you, like, do you find that when something is being reinterpreted or remastered or re-released like in that way, that it brings you back to sort of reevaluate your feelings on like the subject at hand?
It's a good question. I think with Tim, which is one of my favorite albums of all time and one of my most listened to albums of all time, it really is breathtaking to hear it again, where the 1,000th time is the first time. It's really wild. I mean, it really is that good and that shocking. And that's why if you see any men or women over the age of 40 walking around Silver Lake or the East Village with tears in their eyes, don't say "sir, sir" to them. They're just listening to this remaster of Tim. This feels like I almost don't want to share my take because I feel like it's almost contrarian or almost too on the nose, which is to say, like, my experience listening to what now is clearly a terribly mixed record
of Tim,
is, especially because the first time I heard it was on a cassette tape.
Yeah.
Is so profound to me that it feels weird to feel this clean. It feels not quite like the thing that I fell in love with, almost as if, and this is a very old person's comment, as if the barriers to entry were part of the allure. The fact that I couldn't really understand what Paul Westerberg was singing half the time, or it sounded like they were, that Chris Mars
was
playing.
There's a lot of reverb on the drums.
Playing drums, like in the room at the bank where the ATM is before you go into the bank. That's what it's. That's the sound quality of it. But I'm happy that this beautiful version of it exists, and I'm happy that people are engaging with it. And for me, actually, the most interesting part about it is watching a cohort of people, like our peers, suddenly start talking and writing like they were 20 again.
Sure.
About something.
Yeah.
Not with the way that you and I would talk about a TV show, or even the way, in some ways, that we're about to talk about Reservation Dogs, which is like deeply moved, but also still in control of our faculties.
Sure.
That's kind of the power of this record for me. What does it do for you? Because you're famously more of an audiophile than I am.
No, I usually don't notice stuff like this. Mm-hmm. Like, I think when there have been remastered or remixed versions of canonically like kind of worshipped records, I've been like, oh yeah, I think I can kind of feel like it sounds a little bit clearer, or maybe it sounds better. But like, I don't really listen to music in an audio optimized way anyway. Like, I don't think listening to music on your phone with AirPods is the way that like fucking Led Zeppelin meant for you to hear something.
You weren't like the Maxell guy sitting in the chair having his wig blown
No,
back.
I don't have a stereo system anymore.
Yeah.
I have like Sonos speakers, but I don't have a kind of situation where I'm trying to get like the most crisp sonic fidelity out of anything.
You have to say with the brand of speakers, they don't send them to us anymore.
What they did with this record is almost change the personality of the album.
It has.
And I know this is going to, I don't know why I'm dwelling on this, but the rhythm guitar, so essentially Westerberg's guitar playing on the record, has now like a huge character. So melodically, some of the songs have changed in noticeable ways that I love.
Yeah.
But it's really weird. Some of these songs, Little Mascara, Bastards of Young, Left of the Dial, I've listened to as many times as any songs in my life.
Me too.
And now they are new.
Yes. Little Mascara, too, it took me back. Like, that was my favorite song on the record. And now it sounds different. Like a different song.
Like, there are parts of, like, the verses where the rhythm guitar is loud enough that there is a counter melody happening to the vocals that is now new. Like, and I almost don't know what to do with that. But, like, I love it. But I'm also, it is sort of strange. Like, you get into uncanny valley parts. I don't think artists should be restricted to being like, in 1986, we decided to do something some way and we can never change it. I like the idea of things being like this evolution, but...
Is this Greedo shot first?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you also... My thing was, for a long time, I thought the line in Bastards of Young was, they've got no war to name us.
Right.
But apparently it's warrant to name us.
Oh, there's tons of
to name us was so clever because there weren't wars. And here's the bigger picture thing that I'm just trying to relate it to our legion of Zoomer fans is the project of making the replacements sound, quote unquote, like they were supposed to is such, there's a lot of labor and emotional labor invested in this. Because for people who don't know the band we're talking about, turn off this podcast and listen to Tim or Please to Meet Me or Let It Be. But once you know who we're talking about, one of the things that's so appealing about them, and Bob Mayer wrote a great book about them, Trouble Boys, that sort of sketches this out over hundreds and hundreds of pages, is that they should have been. They should have been the great rock band, American rock band of the 80s. They should have been more popular in their time. They should have produced a record that sounded good or that didn't get in its own way. But due to the moment, due to alcohol, due to record labels, and due to their own kind of just middle finger in the air intransigence, like it just never happened and they kind of fell apart famously. And that's part of the appeal. But so since then, whether it's in the book or in these remasters, and particularly this version, it's like chasing a idealized alternate history, where it's like, if only they had fired Tommy Ramone, who produced the record, and hired his engineer, who was in the room at Stasium, to let him do his version, they would have been bigger than anyone in the 80s, and then would have had a much different
But you don't think
too.
that?
It's not, A, I don't think that. But B, it just feels to me like such a wildly, in an interesting way, such a dated argument. Because the whole premise, right, is that things are good if they're underground, but people didn't get it, man. And if only they had, and we're going to... Doesn't that feel... Is there any example of that that sort of... It's not classism, but it's like a relationship to success and a relationship to mainstream. I don't know if that exists anymore. And it's easy for me to say that about music because I'm not like knee deep in the streets like we were 20 years ago. Right. But even in what we do talk about, you know, I don't know how much revisionist history is there for beloved one and done shows, something that is relatively unknown and underseen, like Reservation Dogs. And I'm truly think this is legit. I'm not just trying to make a segue.
No,
here.
I think it's a good one.
The culture has fractured to the point where, like, New York Magazine's Vulture is running like there's like a hub on the homepage right now. They're talking to the production designers of Reservation Dogs, which they should. Brandon Tunner Connolly, great guy, worked on a pilot. I spent a lot of time working on, and but talking to those as if they're the Ed Stasiums of their day. You know what I mean? Like, if you were to go to Vulture, you would be like, the #1 show in America is Reservation Dogs.
Well, if you were going to listen to The Watch, you'd think Succession was like bigger than Yellowstone.
Yes. So I don't know if this is just a very basic, obvious observation about how content is stratified, or if it's just rendered this way of thinking about things differently. Because if the replacements had been covered, even in the underground press or Spin Magazine or whatever, like Reservation Dogs, it would just be a completely different narrative about the band. It would be like, this is the greatest thing. There would be no, and you dummies don't know about it. Or you yuppies, you Patrick Batemans are too caught up with Phil Collins to understand. You know what I mean? Like, I don't remember the text of the reviews, but they were so, the coverage and the narrative is as confrontational as the band was, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I don't know what to do with this large mind brick I just dropped on your head.
Is there a way to talk about Reservation Dogs in the same way? Because, like, I do think that there is a narrative around Reservation Dogs that it's like, it's the best show you're not watching.
Yep.
It's the antidote for all the crap that's on television. It is like the true gem that has been produced by this industry over the last couple of years in the face of so much, it's pretty good for what it is, kind of dreck. You know, I mean, you could make that argument. We don't have to just for the sake of tying the replacements to Reservation Dogs.
I guess
although Sterling Harjo may appreciate the connection.
I hope so. I guess what I would say is to look in, we're part of this post-finale discourse, and we'll talk specifically about the finale, I promise. But the one through line I've seen, and hopefully we'll get to talk to Sterling again too, but when he talked to Alan Sepinwall or when he's talking to Vulture or all these other places that are covering the show rapturously, the vibe and the tenor, and I think this is even a quote from something I saw in Vulture, was this is just the beginning.
Right.
I think that that's something that we, in terms of how we talk about things, struggle with, because in a TikTok and Twitter world, everything is the best thing ever. It's shut down, game over. I think the best thing to say about Reservation Dogs, which is a beautiful show, is what comes next in its wake. What the benchmarks that it established, the careers that it jump-started, the culture and traditions that it gave us access to and sparked our interest in, that is as exciting as the body of work. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, I think that that's actually kind of it's a beautiful and in keeping with the show way to consider it. That it's not a mistake or a fluke or injustice that this wasn't the number one show in the Nielsen streaming ratings. This wasn't the best 3 seasons of any television show ever.
Mm-hmm.
This is wonderful, and it was the start, even as it's stopping.
Yeah, I think that the finale almost said that. I mean, not that it's the best part, but the finale of Reservation Dogs, which is up this week, and
it's called Dig.
And it's called Dig, and it basically takes place, and we'll spoil it going forward. If you haven't had a chance to see it, obviously check it out. It basically covers the funeral ceremony for the character Fixco, right? Who the character Willie Jack, one of the sort of original dogs that we've gotten to know over the last couple of years, has a connection to. She's trying to sort of start to apprentice in some of his his ways. She kind of refers to it as wizardry, but he was obviously this major figure in the community. And I think maybe on paper, it's kind of like a strange place for the season to end. It doesn't directly address something that I think maybe you and I thought, going into season 3, there must be more to tell about this group of kids who were trying to reckon with the death of their friend Daniel, right? Like that they went all the way to California. Bear wasn't going to come back. There was just, that was the season. The first 2 seasons was what that story was about. And then this season has been about something different. This season has been about community, obviously. It's been about people leaving and people staying and people forgiving one another and people connecting behaviors and accomplishments and mistakes and regrets across generations. And I often said during the course of this 3rd season, I want to wait till the end to kind of assess it.
Mm-hmm. Because
I do think that there was moments in the finale that cumulatively were almost overwhelming because they were so beautiful. But I think it ended on a note that didn't necessarily seem super familiar if you were more focused on the first 2 seasons.
Yeah, I think the bug of this season kind of maybe was the feature. I think that it's pretty radical that the stakes got smaller and smaller in a traditional sense as the series went along. And I think that served the purpose that Sterling was trying to communicate about what actually matters, the way life actually unfolds, and the way connections are made and the value of those connections, which is over time.
Mm-hmm.
I also think that what I was saying a moment ago about this being the beginning of something, the larger Harjo expanded cinematic storytelling universe, which began before Reservation Dogs.
Mm-hmm.
He made a number of independent films, but I think he'll have a lot bigger platforms now going forward.
It sounds like he's going to work with Ethan Hawke on some stuff.
I think I think you and I feel that would be a great idea. That it's almost like he realized that he had run out of launching pad. That the first 2 seasons told a story in very unconventional ways, week to week. But over the course of 2 years, there was the arc. There was the Daniel thing. There was the going to California. And that was resolved. And at the end of that, the series kind of could have been over. I would be surprised if he hadn't had conversations about ending it after 2 years and got talked out of it. And one of the reasons he probably got talked out of it was it's such an opportunity, and it's an opportunity to see what else you can do.
Sure.
And to see what else the show can be, and also to just to stretch or develop some other kinds of storytelling muscles. So it's not like anything. We would have said this no matter how the season played out. The show has never been like, it's unlike anything I've ever seen before. I definitely have never seen a series that told its story in 2 years and then kind of had a year-long wake for itself.
Mm-hmm.
That's incredibly. I want to find a less pejorative word than indulgent, because it was a sumptuous indulgence, and I think there were some highs in the season that equaled the highs of the previous 2 seasons. But it's rhythmically unlike anything we'd seen before.
Well, I think also something can be an accomplishment and still be really a little bit disorienting. So there's the thing that the show does, and then there's the way that the viewer interprets it. The fact that this finale and really this season took all the people that were in the background of the main characters' lives, not in the background, but like for the viewer, you look at Bear and, you know, his mom is in the background a little. Rita's in the background a bit, you know? If you're thinking about, you know, I don't know, Cheese, and the fact that sometimes he drops by the medical center, like Bev is just in the background of that.
Bev is the character I was going to talk about too in this context, yes.
And then over the course of this season, I think the camera, the storytelling eye, whatever you want to say, drifted to the people that we had thought were in the background, were the ensemble lifting up this group of characters at the center. And it just basically inverted some of the show, which is amazing. And I do think like the Maximus story wound up paying off. I do think that Rita and Bev's, like, you know, the aunties wound up paying off. Like all the work that the show did over 3 seasons, like pretty much every character is in this finale.
It's wild. And as I think we've said a version of this before, but I think that the show was set up to make us believe something. And more importantly, perhaps, our unfamiliar white minds were set up to think that the show was one thing, which was these kids are running away. Because, and I think Sterling knows this in his bones, that audiences not from Oklahoma see kids who seem cool and promising in Oklahoma without even thinking about it, without judging our thought. We're like, they're going to get away and they're going to go to art school, or they're going to move to Portland or whatever. This show is not about running away. It was about coming home. And so the people who had been there from the beginning start to become less cartoonish or become more complicated, or start to become, as you said, the backbone of these characters' lives, because now they're paying attention to them and they're realizing their place in this larger community and continuum. And I think that's incredible. That is a remarkable work of storytelling art that that it was able to be done on a narrative level, but also just on a who's on the screen, who's filling out the frame kind of level. I think that's very moving.
Mm-hmm.
And the finale, there was a lot of hugs.
Yeah.
There was a lot of hugging in the finale.
Yeah, and I liked where it ended. Like I thought it was pretty bittersweet too. I mean, that group of friends is now split up essentially, you know, and we get a really beautiful moment between Bear and Allura to kind of talk about what they've been through and where they're going. And I think it, you know, any kind of like massive conflict that could have come out of the fact that Bear is now seeing essentially his best friend and his mother leave.
Yeah.
It's not that I don't think it gets swept away. I thought it was like just sort of like in real life, like there isn't some massive fight because somebody decides to go to college.
No, and again, to your point, the show gave us its own answers by bringing in the older generation. Now, I still think, you know, that whatever criticism there is to be made about the season, I think that was a tough transition to crash in a Maximus plot and make it essentially the story of the season when we'd never even seen the character before. But I think that the character played by Graham Greene like has a moment in this finale that answers your question, which is when he's sitting there for the funeral and someone says like, "Where you been?" And he's like, "I've been here.
Yeah.
I've been around."
Right.
Everybody's always kind of been around. They're always aware of each other. No one's ever that far away. And whether it's 1 year in college or whether it's 30 years fighting star people,
sure,
you're still connected and you're still going to end up back there. And my favorite moments of it was a reminder. My favorite moments of the finale were reminders of the series, how the series began for me, which isn't just like, I don't know any of these people and I'm going to fall in love with them. But I didn't know any kind of funeral tradition of Muskogee people. I didn't know the language that was being spoken or the songs that were being sung or grave digging traditions or let's go eat, which is the ultimate uniter when it comes
Sure.
to all people
Yeah.
in moments of celebration or grief. I felt lucky to be invited into that.
Yeah, I think it ultimately, like, it felt really good. Like watching this, and you have to have a kind of real thing happening in your show or in your movie to be able to convincingly use the weight by the band.
Yeah.
And they really pulled it off. Like it's a truly the best of this show kind of combined a very writerly creativity to put people in certain scenarios or to give people certain challenges that were really, really like interesting, but also sometimes just let real life play out in front of a camera and also do it in 30 minutes. And I think it's basically Res Dogs and Atlanta are the two shows that have done that the best. And I think that they have a lot to say to one another as television shows and also as series that did a lot of brave and unconventional stuff with seasons of their runs.
And do you know what else was like really radical, I think, and deserves mentioning? It's not a bait and switch exactly, but it was kind of a trick, which is to say that, and I think Sterling would probably agree with us, like he's roughly our age or something. Everything in culture, certainly television shows, are youth obsessed. And I think what's interesting to look at the show in its totality. He loves the kids and he supports the kids and he wants to hold and protect the kids, but he thinks they're shit asses.
But the elders were kids too. That's the point.
Everyone's been a kid.
Yeah.
But I think that what he's saying is because of the fact that they used to be shit asses and now are whatever they are now, that gives them a weight and something compelling and something interesting and something worthwhile that they actually are in some ways where the heart of the show lies and where the interest of the show lies and what they do with all of this now. And I think that's in and of itself pretty remarkable. What are old people on television outside of The Old Man or Night Sky on Amazon?
Yeah.
Now, in politics, they're everything.
Sure.
So thank God we have that. We respect our elders there.
Look, that's why we put on suits and come to work every day.
Don't get me started.
I want to just give a special shout out to Paulina Alexis, who plays Willie Jack, who I thought was awesome in this episode. Her scene with Lily Gladstone in the beginning of the episode and essentially her eulogy at the end of the episode. Incredible capstones to the episode, but also like really articulating what the series is about and maybe an unexpected character to do so.
I think there's so many quiet MVPs of the show. Like I think Wes Studi, he's so fantastic. I just wish he was in everything. I loved him just playing such a beautiful supporting role. And I didn't even know this because though I've watched him for years, didn't know that much about Wes Studi, that he's from Oklahoma. John Proudstar plays Willie Jack's dad. I know he's been in some of Sterling's stuff before. Like I just think he's phenomenal.
Yeah.
In just the weight that he brings to the looks that he
I also
gives.
just love the Willie Jack episodes full stop over the course of the series.
It's funny. It's funny to sort of meander into our conversation about this finale the way we did and find myself just sort of now, find myself feeling more emotional now talking about it because it's all felt so good. And my feelings about this season were a little more complicated that I almost got away from I loved it.
I think sometimes we can just get TV pilled and we're like, where's this going? What's at stake? What needs to be resolved? What will I learn from this? And this was, in Sterling's own words, like kind of like his version of Nashville, the movie by Robert Altman. And like he told Don Patton at Deadline, he was like, that was a huge thing, is to be able to get as many people in the frame as possible and kind of let life happen on screen. At 38 minutes, there's like more life in this episode of television than you're going to see in most series.
I agree.
But it's like, I think that you and I probably are conditioned to follow a little bit more of like a clear path of a show's rise and fall. And this show kind of did something really different in its third season.
But also it has its own storytelling rhythms, which I think speaks to emerging from a different tradition of storytelling and of comedy and community, one that I'm not as familiar with. And I think that's ultimately a good thing. We're also conditioned both as audience members and potentially as, creative-minded people who want to make things in the world, that if you get a chance to get the ring, you do not let go of it.
Yeah, right.
And I have no question that Sterling Harjo's talent and, his relationships and his community, his point of view are going to guarantee a long career. But there's a confidence in saying, well, I've tried some stuff, but that's not all I am, and it's not all I want to do. that there's more, that there's other ways to try this. And I think that feels pretty good. And when you talk about TV Pilled, I'll confess that when I'm watching the last scene between Bear and the Spirit, played by Dallas Goldtooth, I think, who's a member of Sterling's crew from way back, when he was just like, yeah, I'm here to help Fixco on his journey, and I'm also here for you, Bear. TV brain was like,
is Bear going to die?
Is he going to die?
Yeah.
And I laughed out loud in a not funny, like it wasn't a joke at that moment too, when I realized what I was doing.
Yeah.
That I was like, how basic would that be to throw in?
It's like we've often joked about, like, I think towards the end of Mad Men, every time Don Draper would drive, we'd be like, he's going to drive off the cliff. Like, it's something bad's going to happen here. And it's like, no, he's just driving, It's like, remember when we were watching all the craziness that was happening in that town in New Jersey, and they were like, we need a scientist to look at it. And you were like, I bet it's Reed Richards. I do remember that.
I bet it's Reed Richards
from
coming to investigate
WandaVision. Yeah.
What's going on with Wanda Maximoff.
Was it Reed or was it Mephisto that I was...
That was well, then you got real in your Mephisto bag. But there was the one episode, episode 2, where like the FBI agent Jimmy whatever, and
he's like, there's a guy around the corner who's going to help us with this. And I was like, that's fucking Reed Richards.
And he's got a lot of fantastic fortitude.
He didn't say that. I was just like, obviously, they're going to introduce one of the central characters of the next 10 years of Marvel.
I've run the numbers on 4 years of Gawker Stalker, and I think John Krasinski was near Atlanta that day.
Little did I know, he was just fucking Jack Ryaning.
Yeah, but he did get a little taste of the protocols of the Darkhold. Not to spoil Doctor Strange 2, but...
Or the 53rd minute of Tuesday's episode of The Watch.
Listen, I think people who are real fans of it, this is where this argument comes into play.
Oh, the replacements argument?
Yes. Yeah. There's no Ed Stasium mix of this podcast.
It is what it is.
It just is what it is.
There could be the Sasha mix. Who knows what she does with this after we're done?
That's true, and we're grateful to Sasha for producing us today. But I will say to you, I think I was, what I was saying this to the other day? Someone who is really becoming the my wife Vera of the podcast, which is, you ever hear of an actor named Tim Simons?
I have, yeah.
He was saying it's real weird to hear you guys say my name. I sound like a nice guy when you talk about me, which he is a nice guy. But I said to Tim, I was like, I don't think you appreciate that this is improv work.
Were you guys just like on speakerphone with each other? And like he's at the golf course.
We were both on the treadmill.
You're in an electric car.
But we were on different treadmills, shouting at each other as we took the hills.
Yeah.
No, but I'm like, this is off the dome.
Do you ever do treadmill stuff?
No, I just run.
Oh yeah, that's right.
I just run and run and run.
Yeah. And sometimes you run uphill?
It's often.
Yeah.
Often. There's no psychological.
The guy next to me at the treadmill was like, had it like, it was like not fast at all, but had it like on like pure heart attack incline.
Yeah. Yeah. I used to do the elliptical in New York, and you remember, I've probably talked about this in the podcast, but I used to go to the Park Slope Y, where I would be on the elliptical next to
Mayor BDB.
Mayor Bill de Blasio.
Recently papped making out with another lady.
Was he?
Yeah.
Good for him. Because let me tell you, from my time working out next to him, he is a warm and friendly guy with just like a touch for retail politics that we haven't
Would he
seen.
ever turn to you and say, sir, with tears in his eyes?
I cannot be more clear to you that he never turned to anyone.
Oh, okay.
This is, for people who are listening, this is not interesting or relevant, but like, when Bill de Blasio was elected he lived in Park Slope, and he was just like, I must return daily
to the Y,
to my home neighborhood of Park Slope, because I don't, I want to be I don't feel comfortable on the Upper East Side, which I get. And so every morning he would get in a police motorcade from Gracie Mansion and come down to Park Slope, where he'd work out next to me at the Y. And then, like me, he would then go across the street to Colson, a bakery, where he would have coffee with his wife and only talk to his wife.
Okay.
Never to anyone else. Never said my baby was cute. Not that I'm still annoyed about that.
Any last words on Reservation Dogs?
I'd really rather talk about electoral politics in New York City. Yeah, just that. It's what TV's supposed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I think we said this last week in the spirit, or the other week, in the spirit of just like what, not to make it sound like college football, but like what kind of program Sterling was running, and that seemed ideal in that Devery Jacobs comes in as an actor, gets some time as in the writer's room, then gets to direct an episode. And so this project, which if we're going to go along with our theory, is like built to be the thing that leads to the next thing, I think what he guaranteed with it was that it's not just for him. It's not only that he gets the next thing. It's that Helene Factor gets to be in the Spielberg movie last year, that Devery Jacobs is going to be able to write or direct or act in whatever she wants to going forward. It's that...
about to be Lily Gladstone season.
It's about to be Lily Gladstone and Oscar season at the same time. It's that it's Don McClarendon, who was working steadily and will always work steadily, but he was working steadily in variations on the part that he played in Fargo and in Westworld.
Right. And now he's got Dark Winds and this.
Gets to be goofy, and he gets to be Dark Winds serious. And people are, I've noticed people are wanting us to watch more Dark Winds. I thought Dark Winds was good. We talked about the first episode. We just kind of didn't stick with it. But he's strong and charismatic in that. And he's just a total goof in this. And he gets to be both. And that native creators can walk into any network and say, I have a point of view. I have a story. The people that he gave a chance, that he hired to direct the show, that he hired in his writer's room, it is bigger than the show. And it is absolutely an exemplar of like what we should be doing. Not for any spirit of like tokenism or niche programming, but like what they made was wonderful in the best possible way. And it's the rare ending that feels like more like a beginning.
Yeah, that's a really good way of putting it. We can wrap it up there. We'll be back on Monday, probably some more The Gold talk.
And we're going to talk about the Eric Adams administration.
And we'll be moving forward in our Caro-esque history of New York City.
Of mayors we didn't really experience because we moved to California.
Andy.
Yeah.
You said I need to plug my event.
Oh, yeah.
And you were supposed to do that in the beginning of the show because you were like, I don't know if 50 minutes in, people heard me.
We need to come up with a cool, you have CR heads. They're big fans of you.
Yeah.
We need to come up with people who are just like, the 65th minuters. You know what I mean? Like the ones who
65-minute gang? Yeah.
Yeah, who like really, really wait to the end.
Why don't you say what you were going to say? Let's just hope.
I mentioned this in the whateverth minute of last show. I just wanted to let people know again or remind people that I'm going to be hosting an event this coming Monday, October 2nd at Stories Books Cafe in Echo Park here in Los Angeles with our old friend Sean Howe, who has a new book out called Agents of Chaos about a guy named Tom Forsad, who was a 70s radical and founded High Times magazine and was quite a sketchy and charismatic figure. Sean isn't necessarily a sketchy figure, but he is charismatic.
He's very charismatic.
And a good friend of ours. And I think it's going to be really fun to talk to him about his book and about whatever else. 7 p.m., Stories, Books, and Cafe. I'll be there.
I will not, sadly, but I am.
It's noted.
Yeah.
Well, you can say your event, but
I'm also doing a live event that night at the New Beverly Cinema with the Rewatchables gang.
I love that I think that we are now actively trolling people who might want a live watch event. Right? We do live events now, just not.
I mean, I don't know if I can meet your price.
That's true. That's true.
It's tough. I don't know how Sean did.
Well, I do have a booking agent that,
And decades of friendship probably paid for it, right?
Well, yeah. I mean, Sean and you and I have a professional relationship. Sean and I have a parasocial relationship.
Thanks again to Sasha for producing us. We'll be back on Monday morning. Everybody take care.